everyone, welcome to Coffee with Kai. My name is Kai Magsanok. I am the editor-in-chief of Hello Doctor Philippines. With us today is someone I look up to in the field of journalism. She was a journalist like me, and then she went into PR. Now she is an advocate. She also owns her own business consulting company called Rabah Consulting. It is one of the feathers in my cap that I wear. We won an Anvil Award together for working on the John Maxwell event sometime in the 2000s. So with us today, we're featuring her as our Hello Health hero, hemophilia advocate, Miss Andrea Trinidad. Hi, Andrea.
Hello. Hi, Kai. So good to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for spending time with us to talk about a disorder that maybe not a lot of people are not very familiar, with a lot of people, right? Parang we read that about the Romanovs, right? About Queen
Right.
Victoria. But not many people really understand the impact and what life is with hemophilia, right? So to jump into it, when people search for you, Andrea, and then they see your profile reads you are an advocate of people with bleeding disorders. We're talking about hemophilia. So please, from a patient perspective, please define to us what is hemophilia.
Okay. So hemophilia is a bleeding disorder where the blood does not clot. So, or it takes a long time to clot. Kasi in our blood, meron tayong natural na clotting factors eh. So, these are like team of proteins that bulk in together to form a clot. So for people like us who have deficient clotting factors, pagka nagkaroon ng sugat or nagkaroon ng internal problem with internal bleeding, it takes a long time for the blood to form a clot. So, for example, it's usually seen in males, but for women like me, it's really very challenging because imagine your period. Um, diba? So, it can actually parang kaya na-hospital minsan yung mga babae na may hemophilia because of severe periods, severe menses. Ganyan. And then sometimes, for example, yung nag-simple na pabunot, normally naman in people without the disorder, pag nagpabunot ka, hindi nagkakaproblema, di ba? Parang konting cotton lang, it's okay na. But for people with hemophilia, like one of the patients that we're currently assisting in Mindanao, his hemoglobin count dropped to 6 after a few days of profuse bleeding in the gums. So we also had an experience before. Because of yung tooth extraction, the child actually passed away. So parang before, you cannot imagine someone na binunutan lang ng ngipin, mamamatay ka ba sa ganon, right? So that's for people with bleeding disorders.
What is the importance? Sorry, this is we can call it quote unquote a stupid question. No? Pero what is the importance of the clotting of our blood, Andrea? Why is it important that our blood is able to clot?
Yeah, because our body, God is so amazing, no? He made our body in such a way that parang meron lang siyang natural mechanism na pag nasugatan ka, magsa-stop lang siya kasi nagfo-form yung mga complex na nangyayari pala doon sa blood natin. So for people without bleeding disorders, eventually nagsa-stop talaga yung bleeding. But for those na may hemophilia, it takes a very long time. So for example, if in 15 minutes, someone without hemophilia, nag-stop na yung bleeding, for us, it may take days.
Oh gosh. And that's why, right, even when you watch crime series, no, sometimes the victim passed away because the victim bled out. So parang
Yes.
you're always at risk of bleeding out if you have hemophilia. Is that correct?
Right. So, some people, di nila alam, for example, na may hemophilia sila, tapos nauntog lang, nagkaroon na ng brain bleed. 'Diba? Kasi konting untog mo naman, hindi ka naman magkaka-brain bleed, 'diba? But for those with, even with mild hemophilia, pag nauntog, pwede ka talagang, you can have brain bleeding. Yeah.
It's a very delicate um, condition. I'm interested to know, Andrea, what is your hemophilia story? How did you discover that you had it? And of course, what were the symptoms that you saw and felt?
Yeah. Okay. I think my story, I would say that it really started with my daughter Star. Although my mom died of bleeding on the operating table kasi she wasn't properly diagnosed eh. But it was really during that time that I gave birth to Star. And then like 3 weeks old, she had a nosebleed. So I already had like this fear na she might have inherited. Kasi when my mom died, we realized na, oh, this runs pala in our family because I also have a nephew who has hemophilia. So, and then a few years after my mom died, her brother got diagnosed with another bleeding disorder in the US while undergoing tonsillectomy. So it means that it really runs in our blood. So when I gave birth to Star, that she had nosebleed. That was her first symptom. When I gave birth to her, pala, she had bruises all over her body. So I thought it was just like birthmark. And then after a while, it went away. Tapos she had the nosebleed. So nung nag-nosebleed na siya, I was asking we brought her to the ER and I asked the doctor, is it possible for her to have hemophilia? Because my nephew, her cousin, just got diagnosed. And then the doctor said, no, because she's a girl. Because in the olden times, women were not diagnosed with hemophilia. They were only diagnosed as carriers. Like Queen Victoria, she had 4 daughters with who also, carried the gene. So they were called carriers, even though women showed symptoms like menorrhagia, which is profuse periods, diba? So that started it. We brought her abroad for the diagnosis because here she wasn't diagnosed. And then since I had family history, the doctor also decided to check my blood. So we were both diagnosed with first another type of bleeding disorder called von Willebrand disease, and then eventually my second lab work showed that I have hemophilia A, which is factor 8 deficiency. So I got involved na in the, when you're sicking, when you have something strange, because in the early 2000s, oh no, that was 2000, I think we were diagnosed 2006. So, wala pang Facebook that time. And then there was hardly a global community. Parang email lang noon. You can Google, ganyan. There were Yahoo groups, pero not as active as now. And it's a bit scary when you don't know what the condition is all about, right? And then so I became friends with some people in the international community, and then they encouraged me to become active in groups for women with bleeding disorders. So that's how. And then I got involved in the local community na. But I was in the international first, and then one of the ladies that I met, she said, "Oh, there's a group in the Philippines." So I got introduced to the group here, the support group here in the Philippines, and that's how it started. 2006. Yeah.
So I need to ask, Andrea, syempre for a parent, for you to discover, right? I just want to ask, how did you pull yourself through that? Just realizing, no, finding out that your daughter has a bleeding disorder that your mom actually died of, right? She bled out, and then that you also have it. I want to understand how you managed to pull through that period, knowing that okay, I
Yeah.
have it. How
I
did you?
passed it on.
Yeah, and you passed it
Yeah.
on, right? How did you
Right.
take yourself through that?
Of course, at first, um, there was a lot of fear, I would say, and sometimes I questioned like, why did I why did I pass it on to her? So I felt like it was my fault. I think it's normal for those na you just got diagnosed. In fact, even some of the parents in our community, when they see their children suffering from pain, from bleeding, they would say na sana ako na lang, 'di ba? Sana hindi ko na lang siya napasa sa anak ko. I mean, I think it's normal. But also I think I'm also the kind of person that I always look at the meaning of life. Like, why did God give this to me? Why did this thing happen? And how can I turn it around? How can I turn it into something positive? So that the sadness that I felt when Star and I got diagnosed, I turned it into something productive because I felt na my mom's death should never go to vain, 'di ba? Parang um there has to be a reason. Like I was only 17 when my mom died, and parang growing up without a mom, it's in your teenage years, the teenage angst and all that without a parent there, a mother at that. It's really not easy. So parang I said I have to find meaning into this. That's why I got involved in the community, and I said na I don't want people like children like me whose parents died of of bleeding, of this disorder, to suffer the same way that I suffered. I think I suffered more emotionally because I I was young, quite young when my mom died, 'di ba? So, and it was 17, 18 years old. Those are the times that you really needed a parent to be there and help you navigate the world. Something like that. Yeah.
Is there any, so you have Star, Star is your youngest, you have two other kids, Ben and Sophia. Did the doctor have any explanation why only Star got the disorder?
It's the chromosome. So you share a chromosome. They share my chromosome and their dad's chromosome. So it explains it that the two others, because it's usually 50-50 chance of your children to also get the disorder.
Okay. Um, so 2006, you have been living with it for more than for 15 years.
Yeah, I've been living with it since I was born because it's genetic. It's just that I did not really bother. I did not really think about it, and I had so I would say that earlier on my quality of life was affected because I didn't know what was happening to me, diba? Like when I sometimes I would pass out. It turns out that I was severely anemic and there was no explanation to it. Yung ganon. So it's your quality of life that has been affected.
Yeah, so how pays to parang it begs to the question begs to be asked, how is hemophilia managed and how does it cost?
Oh.
If I feel like, right, if I feel like, and maybe Andrea to give hope to those who need it, maybe as an advocate, right? Um, where who can people turn to if they need to be guided, right? In the
Yeah.
management of hemophilia, including the cost of managing.
Yeah. So I would well, how do we navigate life with hemophilia? It really helps when you are part of a community because um, having close relationship with a doctor is really good, right? But having a community that understands how you feel, because sometimes you're not good all the time, you don't feel good all the time, right? Especially when you experience pain, when when you're not feeling well. Sometimes you feel grouchy and then people around you don't understand what you're going through. But if you have others like your co-patients, they also go through the same, then you can share thoughts and you can share like how do you address that, or for example like I always say na kasi parang iba-iba naman how we look at life, 'di ba? Or how we, even if we go through the same experiences, it's really how you look at your circumstances and how you parang go through it, that really matters. So even if like ako, I never allowed hemophilia to bring me down or to let me stop me from doing what I want, really. So many times I'm on the way to the office because of Manila's traffic, and then suddenly I had a bleed. I have to go to the hospital, di ba? And then following day, okay, I have my blood transfusion. Following day, I go back to the office. So it's like nothing happened. Parang I don't want kasi to give to oppress me. I don't want the disorder to oppress me, 'di ba? So um hemophilia is really manageable. It's a genetic disorder. It's a lifelong disorder, but it's also manageable if you just listen to your body, and then when you feel when you're starting to have a bleed. So we have this clotting factor called anti-hemophilic clotting factors. You infuse it. So we have taught our members to do home infusion at the onset of the bleed. But of course, we always remind them to go and see your hematologist, because they need to, not everything, not every pain means hemophilia. It could be from other disorders or other diseases, diba? So we always tell them, you infuse, but then you have to see a doctor. So you can manage it through that factor infusion. Um, how much does it cost? It depends, because it depends on your weight and on the severity of the bleed. For example, my usual bleed is menorrhagia or profuse periods. I am advised to infuse every 12 hours, and one infusion costs like $2,000 to $3,000. So dollars, because these medicines are not available here. If you convert it into peso, yeah, just do the math. If you we're very fortunate. We're very blessed that we have humanitarian donations from international organizations. So that's why how Hemophilia Advocates Philippines have been helping patients through these donations from our friends in the US.
Okay.
Yeah.
Aside from the medicines and teaching them how to infuse at home, we also give counseling, like other support groups, right? Especially maybe for those who are having a harder time. I love how you said you will not let the condition oppress you, right? That is the exact opposite of the victim mentality, and that's exactly what we need. Someone, a fighter, right? But I guess, Andrea, not all have the mental capacity, right? Sometimes, or even the spiritual capacity, let's say, to,
Right.
to help them think that way. So, does Hemophilia Advocates Philippines also provide that counseling, diba? The support system, the
Yeah.
overall, a holistic support system?
Right. Yeah, we have our we have our youth group. They're very active. So they have a group chat where they check on each other. They have a monthly kumustahan where they invite friends from the international community to join them in there. It's just like a conversation, sharing how they feel, things like that. And then we have the women's group, we call them momshies. So these are the moms, the wives, female relatives, female caregivers. So they're the momshies, and I'm so happy, and I'm very proud of them. Like they go beyond just sharing experiences. In fact, a few of the moms, she's put together a business, and I think they already have 4 franchise for that. Um, they have this takoyaki kiosk.
Right?
So, diba? So it's so nice they help each other, especially during the pandemic. We go beyond just helping with medicines. We also help in terms of providing opportunities like grants, financial aids for those who lost their jobs. So for as long as they have a business proposition, we look for sponsors for them to start their own business. So we have already given, I think, about 10 families have already benefited from that. And then we provided financial aid for those affected by the Taal eruption last year. And then the pandemic happened, diba? So we have provided um, some financial aid to these families, 20 to 30 families, I think. Yeah. And then we have the men's group. They're composed of the older hemos and the dads and husbands. So they're called the he-men.
That's so
Diba? So, yeah, he-men.
the pandemic. I wonder, is hemophilia considered a comorbidity?
Not really. Not really. Parang it's not in the classification. Although, yeah, unfortunately.
So, if anyone who is reading the transcript of our interview or watching our video suspects that he or she or a loved one has hemophilia and they want to contact the Hemophilia Advocates Philippines, where do they go?
They can go to our website, which is hemophilia.ph, or they can find us in Facebook, Hemophilia Advocates Philippines. We have a page. So they can message us or email us at info at hemophilia.ph.
All right, we'll take note of that. We'll highlight that during the interview. So I guess my last question, Andrea, is your message to the people who are watching our interview, um, who might, especially, of course, before we publish the interview, we'll already be putting out material on what we are discussing in this particular episode. So definitely people who are tuned in probably suspect, right? Or they have that. So what they or their loved one, what is your message to them?
Yeah. For those who have not been diagnosed, or even those who are already diagnosed, sometimes, knowing that you have a lifelong disorder which you don't really heal from, you just manage it. Sometimes it can be scary. You feel scared or you feel sad, right? Which is very normal feeling. But I would say that a lot of people with hemophilia, for as long as they listen to their body, they take care of themselves, they can live normal lives. There are a lot of persons with hemophilia who have become successful in life. In fact, there are twin boys. I'm so proud of them. They're Filipinos from Dumaguete. So I've seen them since they were babies until they were growing up. And then they moved to the US and they just recently passed in Harvard. So they're going to Harvard, both of the boys. And I would say that, these are very inspiring stories because they really worked hard to be able to get good education, and they wanted to give back to the Philippines. So after they graduate from Harvard, they plan to come back to the Philippines and really serve our community. So I really hemophilia is not a death sentence. It's not a life sentence. It's something that can be like a friend. Okay, he's there. Sometimes that friend is toxic, but then you just have to live with it and accept it that life is like that, right? And just always have that positive outlook that not all days are bad days.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. You really are you really are a very inspiring woman. I say that because I
Thank
know you beyond being the face of Hemophilia Advocates Philippines, right? You really are an inspiring woman. And thank you. Imagine these the
you.
twin boys. The twin boys, you basically raised them, right? You supported that you were there in their while they were growing up, and they are there, I'm sure, because of your support to them and their family. Okay, so that concludes our episode for today on hemophilia and Miss Andrea Trinidad's story. For any questions you have for their community, you can contact them directly through the information she shared with us. Or you can also reach out to them through hellodoctor.ph and we'll make sure to connect you with them. So once again, this is Kai Magsanok of Hello Doctor Philippines. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Hello Doctor